Right now, the charter mandates that we meet 3 times a week. This requirement, which was really well-intentioned when it was adopted, it hinders our ability to perform our duties effectively and makes us less effective as a body. The most significant issue, in my mind, is its impact on our committee meeting schedule and work. As we all know, committees are crucial for in-depth policy work. They often meet just once a month because these meetings often run long, because we have 2 hours of presentations and 2 hours of comment. Frequently we're delayed, like today. Plum is starting late, TTT is starting late. All the people who are here for those committees are sitting and waiting for those committees to get started. By giving us the flexibility to set the frequency of council meetings, we can ensure that committee meetings are proceeding without interruptions when they're supposed to start. And one of the things that I'm most excited about is the opportunity to do joint committee meetings, right? So I chair E&E, Councilmember Lee chairs Public Works. We've talked about doing joint committee meetings around the city's waste process, which we just don't have time in the calendar for because we have to have these meetings 3 times a week. There are other committees where I know we've talked about doing joint committees, et cetera, having longer committee meetings. We're putting a bunch of stuff on consent calendar on our committee because there's simply not enough time, because these keep getting pushed back because council runs long. And a lot of substantive conversations that should be happening in public that our departments are doing aren't happening because we're just pushing it onto consent, because we simply don't have enough hours in the day to have the robust, substantive policy conversations in our committees. I want to be clear that this proposed amendment doesn't reduce it to once per week. Weekly means at least once per week. So this body could decide, we could go down to 1 or 2 and then decide, you know what, 3 is a better number. We can get back to that. If 3 meetings in a week is what we need, then we can schedule 3 meetings in a week. What this amendment does is remove a really rigid requirement from the charter that's hampering our other work in a really significant way. The Charter Commission, in the interim, over the next couple of years, could choose to explore this issue as part of a more comprehensive charter reform, but this gives us the flexibility, should this pass by the voters in the fall, to start experimenting with fewer council meetings, more committee meetings, more time in our districts, et cetera. I believe that the opportunity cost is simply too high for us to wait another couple of years while charter reform happens. We could be more effectively and efficiently using our time now by devoting more of that time to these committee meetings, which I think are sort of the heart of the work that we do as a body. And I do believe that we'll be more efficient and effective both for our constituents and as accountable to the greater policy considerations that we are weighing every day that often that get short-shrifted because we have to cut those meetings short. So I ask for your aye vote on this. I think that it actually will make us a more effective body, and I think that I know that a lot of the substantive work isn't happening in these council meetings, it's happening in our committees, and we keep canceling them, and that's not okay. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you. So I will be voting no on this item. And since I've been chair of Public Safety Committee, I think I can count 2 times that I've canceled. I've held joint commission, police commission meetings with public safety. We've been able to do it all. And a lot of that just is born out of good planning, proper planning as a committee chair. It also comes out of making sure that you collaborate with the council president and helping to set the agenda so that we can actually be more effective in how we manage our time. But I do believe the public expects us to conduct these meetings. I think I've heard from my own constituents that have on occasion made attempts at even trying to go speak before the Board of Supervisors, how limiting and long those meetings are before they have an opportunity to speak on their items. We're providing greater opportunities for public input to come and participate in their local governments. This is what local governance is about being accessible, about having those meetings, about being available to hear their concerns as well. And it's for that reason that I have a really big problem with the idea that, you know, again, what's been bantered back and forth is the idea that we're going to expand the council so that we can have more accessibility and accountability, but now we're going to contract the meetings. And it's just been all over the map. And I'm just trying to ascertain what people really stand for at this juncture. I think it's a really big problem for individuals who earn what we earn to serve in these policy-making roles to not have deliberative conversations here as council members that meet 3 times a week. I think there's nothing that obstructs having committee meetings. I think we have clearly been able to do this. In fact, this council has been doing it for generations. So to me, I am uncomfortable with moving forward with something that actually retracts the accessibility for people to participate in their local government. I think this is the wrong way to go. Frankly, you know, I'm accustomed, and maybe because I've just, for the last nearly 30 years, when I started here at City Hall, we were used to going to Saturday events. I know, Mr. McCosker, you're very active in your district. I'm very active in my district. Mr. Lee, we're out in our communities all the time. You can do both. It just requires proper planning, and it can all happen and not deny the public from being able to attend their local city council meeting. That is the fundamental part of what this job is, and I have a really big problem trying to scale that back. And if you're not going to set a specific number, then I think you've only enabled a greater problem to try and ascertain, well, how many meetings is it going to be this week? And can I actually have that committee meeting or not? Because something automatically gets scheduled. This is something that we should actually have consistency in. And so I will not be supporting this amendment.
Thank you. Councilmember Hernandez, followed by Councilmember Blumenfield.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Councilwoman Yaroslavsky, for putting this forward. As someone who has had to advocate at LA County for over 5 years, attending those weekly Tuesday meetings, I'll tell you that being a legislator in this space, you can tell the difference of how public comment hits there versus how it hits here. We have meetings 3 times a week. As an advocate, it's very difficult to show up to advocate 3 times a week, having to get out of work, having to pay for parking, having to sit here for hours. And most of the time, not even everybody's sitting here listening to the public comment. And a lot of times, council members, I'm saying this as one of the council members with the, and thank you for sharing this, Council Member Rahman, with the highest, like we haven't been absent, like Councilmember McCosker and I have the least absences this year on the council. So I'm also speaking from that lens. But I think what I would like to see is this not, I would hope that we could use our imaginations to put forward a meeting schedule and a process where we take into account in a much more intentional way the public comment that comes in. And the times that we meet. Our meetings start at 10 a.m. Sometimes they go for 5 hours, sometimes they go for 6 hours. But what about starting our meetings later? What about having opportunity for nighttime public comment? My working class communities, they're not here at 10 a.m. And when they do, it's such an impact on their lives because we have to also bring them in, like when we brought the garment workers industry. And so I don't think this is a moment to turn away. In fact, I think this is a moment to use our imagination to figure out how we make these meetings more inclusive, how we make them more accessible, how we have expanded translation. And, you know, a lot of us I represent 22 very unique neighborhoods, over 264,000 people. I do think we need to expand the council. But right now, this process doesn't allow us to be in our community as much as we need to. For most of the time that I've been serving here, I've been on 6 committees and having to be here 3 times a week. How does that allow me time to visit the 22 neighborhoods? And I go 7 days a week. Talk to my scheduler. Last year, I had over 1,200 meetings and events because I'm not playing. I want to engage my community. But I think we could do things more efficiently. And the county does it. They represent 10 million people. They do it once a week, and it works for them. I think we should be innovative and use this as an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Blumenfield, followed by Councilmember Soto Martinez.
Thank you. I certainly agree that we need to be more imaginative and innovative in how we run the meetings. And I agree that you know, a lot of the most inefficient time that I spend during the week is sometimes the time that I spend here in this chamber. I hate to say that, but there's a lot. We do a lot of work across the board that's really important. At the same time, I'm not ready to vote for this. I'm concerned that politically this could become a poison pill, and we put this directly on the ballot along with all these other things. It's going to create a dynamic that will cause the public to sour on a whole number of the charter changes that are there. I think that we do need to get creative. The Charter Commission should look at this issue and help us come up with a way to have more flexibility. We have some flexibility now. We could cancel meetings. That is within our jurisdiction, our charter powers to do, and perhaps we should be doing that. I also think there are ways we can do this meeting more efficiently, but I'm not comfortable at this point. I mean, I know the history of how we got to this place with the 3 meetings a week was moving as we moved from a part-time to a full-time council, and I think it's really important to be a full-time council. So as much as I agree with the sentiment of where you're going with this, and I respect putting this on, I think it is substantive enough that it should go to the commission, and that I'm not comfortable with us just putting it directly on the ballot, and I worry about the reverberations politically of that, of how it's going to sour the ability to do something like this moving forward. But I respect you putting this forward, and certainly understand the sentiment behind it.
Thank you. Councilmember Soto Martinez, followed by Councilmember Lee, followed by Councilmember Padilla.
Thank you so much, Council President. I have a question just for clarification, because I think what we're striking here, it says at least 3 days each week, and replacing it by weekly. Does that mean that we'll meet once a week, or the minimum of 1 time a week?
And I think Councilmember Yaroslavsky clarified that would mean at least once a week at the discretion of the council.
Weekly is defined as at least once a week.
Okay, so then I'm fine with it. And I actually agree with what everybody said. And I think that, no, seriously, because it'll give us the ability to do once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. If you want to meet 5 times a week, we can have 5 times a week, right? I think that was not a joke, but we could do that. But I do think it requires a little bit more creativity. We spend a lot of time here, but we want to do 5, we could do 5. So I'll be voting in favor of this. I think it's a good idea.
Thank you. Councilmember Lee, followed by Councilmember Padilla, followed by Councilmember Rahman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree with you, Councilmember Soto Martinez, that everyone is making good points. And Councilmember Yaroslavsky, you and I have discussed this issue about having joint committees and not finding that time in our schedules to schedule those things. And I agree. My time is better spent, in my community, working with my community. That's, when I believe that I'm most effective at this job. But there was a time and point where this council voted for their own pay increases, and that obviously was not a good look for this council. So we gave that option over to the voters to decide that our pay should be determined by something else, so that we weren't, as a council, being put in the position where we had to vote for our own pay increases. I think this is the same thing. While I support your arguments, and while I support the arguments made by the people who believe that we should meet at a minimum once a week, and I understand Councilmember Rodriguez's arguments as well, I believe that this should be something studied by the Charter Commission, for them to for them to take time, public input, to hear the different arguments, because I think all the arguments made today all make sense, but I think that is not our thing. I think that we should move this along to the Charter Commission, for them to take a look at, for them to examine, for them to actually decide where, if it's once a week or twice a week or 3 times a week, or even whether it means more times a week. They should decide that by getting the public input and really studying whether our time is more spent here, better spent here, or in our community districts. I just don't think that this council should make that decision on its own.
Thank you. Councilmember Padilla, followed by Councilmember Rahman, followed by Councilmember Rodriguez.
I also am somebody that really enjoys spending much more time in my district than being here in council, which is why on Mondays and Thursdays, I'm in my council offices, and I'm accessible to both my district as well as my staff, and we are consistently working and making sure that we utilize those days as productively as possible. But I also agree with Mr. Lee's sentiment that I don't think that this is appropriate for us to discuss ourselves, because it's defining our own schedules. And, I also want to say that to operate from the perspective of this might be a week where we have one council meeting, or maybe 2, or maybe 3, is only going to make local government less accessible, because then the public doesn't know when and if we're going to meet. So I actually don't like that idea. And I also think that, I only want to speak for myself, but I do listen to public comment when I'm here. I try really hard to listen. I try not to get up. And I'm very intentional to listen, because there's been moments where people are speaking in Spanish, and I'm the one that has to tell everybody to please quiet it down, because I can't hear them. And I'm also somebody who knows that people from the 6th District call in, so I make sure that I'm listening when the 6th District calls in, because I know that they're not necessarily showing up. So I think we all need to check our own behaviors before we start to say that the whole council acts a certain way, and therefore we should adjust and amend when we make ourselves accessible to the public. I'm one of the farthest, in terms of geography, council members to get here, but we all park in the same place, and I tend to make it on time. I'm one of the first vehicles in here in that parking lot. So it really is about our own behavior when we're here. Are we being intentional? So I don't feel comfortable saying, I'm not gonna be voting for this. I think this is something that needs to be further discussed.
Thank you. Councilmember, I don't remember whether I called Councilmember Yaroslavsky before. I think Councilmember Rahman, Councilmember Rodriguez, and then Councilmember Yaroslavsky.
Well, I want to thank everyone for the robust discussion today. Actually, I've sat here coming out thinking I would vote one way, and actually people's arguments have changed my mind. So thank you all for your thoughtful perspectives. Councilmember Blumenfield, the point you made about this being a potential poison pill for people, undermining the good work that I think the council has been doing on reform, I take very seriously, and I want to thank you for making that point. So as much as I am desperate to spend more time in my community during the week, during the work week, as much as I'm desperate to see my kids more often than I do, because so many of my meetings end up being in the evenings, I think in order to maintain, I think the good work that we've been doing on the reform process, I am gonna vote against this and suggest that it go in front of the Charter Reform Commission for its consideration. I do just want to say to our current council president and to our future council president, I encourage you to use your power to cancel meetings as needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Rodriguez, followed by Councilmember Yaroslavsky to close.
Thank you. And I just wanted to address, again, this idea that, again, and to Ms. Rahman's point, this idea that our meetings, our scheduled meetings, we do have the ability to cancel. We also have the ability to take them into the community. That has been done before. We've gone to Van Nuys City Hall. We've gone to other, in the history of this council, they've gone to actual council districts, and they've done their meetings in the evening. So there's nothing that prohibits us from doing it at times that are more accommodating to our constituents, and making ourselves more available in the very neighborhoods that we are impacting with a lot of the decisions that are being made. There's nothing that obstructs that. The only thing that does or doesn't is whether or not this council chooses to participate in that, or that the council president set that agenda and we move forward with that. But we've taken committee meetings into the community in the evenings. Everyone has done it. That's not a new thing. Now, I've never seen the Board of Supervisors do that, but I know we've done it. So all that to say is that what I've seen with the limited number of meetings that happen at the Board of Supervisors is that there's actually less influence in that space. I've actually seen more of the bureaucracy take hold of the direction of what the board does, in my opinion, versus what the members themselves. This allows us more of that direct engagement as well with our general managers, with our departments, as policymakers. And that's where I find the greatest opportunity in the roles that we have as council members, meeting with that frequency. But there's nothing that prohibits us from doing it at a time that is more conducive to members of our community, and doing it in those districts. And exercising the flexibility that if we're going to have joint committee meetings, then that week we might redact having a council meeting, or that council meeting is more abbreviated. It's all in the scheduling, folks. So yes, I agree. Certainly feel far more comfortable if it would go to the commission, but I will not be voting for this as part of a package that goes before the voters.
Thank you. Councilmember Yaroslavsky to close.
So I have a question and then a comment. So would this be part of a larger package that people would vote on altogether, or would this be separate, or would it be lumped in with a bunch of other charter reform proposals?
So
I certainly don't want to poison pill anything, but I also think that the public, for the most part, just wants us to fix the city. And I don't think I don't think people equate 3 meetings a week with us doing a job full-time versus any other number of times. But I am curious how this would be structured on the November ballot.
Very good.
Well,
thank you.
Councilmember Mike Dundas, City Attorney's Office. The council can direct our office to issue this particular item as a standalone ballot measure, separate from the other ones, if that's the prerogative of the council.
So it could be put separate, or it could be lumped in with a bunch of other things.
Correct.
Is what you're saying. So I don't know, Councilmember Blumenfield, if that changes it, or if you just think it's part of a larger challenge that people would say, well, the whole thing is a problem.
I mean, I think that helps, but for me, that still is a problem. I think the way it's going to be perceived without having gone through a vetting process, just adding this on there, I think is going to be problematic for a lot of reform efforts. But
okay. Look, you can tell that I'm restless and frustrated because some of the most inefficient time I spend, I have 3 little kids. I'm all the time working. I'm either working here, I'm working in my district, I'm doing dishes and vacuuming at home, and all I want to do is be more efficient in this space. And I know many of you believe that reducing the number of meetings would allow us to be more efficient and effective in our jobs. And that's why I'm willing to take some of the blowback that may come from what some in the public may perceive as us shirking our responsibility, when in fact I think it would actually allow us to be more effective. But that being said, if there isn't the support for this today, I'm comfortable moving this to the commission. I don't know that the commission fully understands what we do, but hopefully they will use the time to come talk to us and look at our schedules and look at what we're juggling and trying to figure out. I mean, I want us to be able to really spend the time in our committees, working together, doing cross-committee work that would allow us to look at these complicated issues across committees, which, many of us sit on other bodies, AQMD, Metro, et cetera. So we also have other standing meetings every month. I think we're very efficient in terms of how we schedule things. But at the end of the day, if there's not the support for this, I don't want to poison pill anything. I want there to be charter reform. I think the charter is broken. And so I would ask that we then, what's the right way to do this? Move this to be something that is not proposed to go on the ballot, but that would be something that explicitly the commission would be asked to take up. Councilmember McCosker, you're looking very...
Well,
with your support,
Councilmember's next on the queue. So
okay,
Mr.
I mean,
McCosker,
I'm comfortable with that. If others don't feel comfortable putting this on, I don't want to poison pill charter reform. We absolutely need charter reform. I think this is an essential part of charter reform. I just am eager to do it sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Councilmember McCosker.
Thank you very much. I want to support and thank my colleague, Councilmember Yaroslavsky. I think that's well said. Where I want to just reflect on the following couple of facts. One of the longtime city council veterans over the weekend, I happened to run into her, and she said, "Don't forget, Councilman, that this body used to meet 5 days a week." And it was the great John Ferraro, for whom these chambers are named, who said, "We're not in our districts enough." And we moved to 3 days a week. And even a greater influence in my life, the great Kenny Hahn, when he was on the Board of Supervisors, had a saying. He used to tell his staff, remind them every day, it's not about Tuesdays. His saying was, it's not about Tuesdays. Did he go to meetings on Tuesdays? Do I go to all these meetings? Yes. Did he vote? Did he, do his job in the Hall of Administration? Yes. But I don't think we appreciate enough. I mean, I don't think we collectively as a community appreciate enough how many things we turn down when community members say, please come to this meeting, please come to this graduation, please come to this session, please come. I turn down, I'm sure you all do too, I turn down 20 things a week. You know, and I did 600 events in my first year. And I don't think I missed that many, I don't think I missed but a handful of meetings in my first year here. I get that this is important, and it makes us feel fancy to be in this room. But being with people in the community, boots on the ground, feet out there, is really what matters. Sidewalks, streets, curbs, gutters, tree trimming, and being with folks. I don't have a single person in my district who says, geez, I wish you were in city council chambers more often. Nobody says that. Nobody says that. But they do say, how come you didn't come to my daughter's graduation? So I deeply respect what we do here. And I deeply respect my colleague, Katy Yaroslavsky. And I appreciate the fine argument that was made here. But I'm going to be in front of that commission arguing that we are better council members, we are better representatives, we are better public servants if we are creative about how we conduct these meetings, making sure everybody can be heard, but also very purposeful about making sure that we are out in our communities. And we are not purposeful about being in our communities today. And that's not a fault of anyone. It's the system that we have. It's the charter provision that we have. So I accept the modification, and I look forward to following it to the commission.
Thank you. So I just want to make clear, because there hadn't been a motion yet, but Councilmember Yaroslavsky, are you moving to amend your motion with Councilmember McOsker to refer this matter to the commission?
Yes.
Okay. So the mover and the co-mover have so requested. We'll count that as a motion and a second. Is there further discussion about this item? Because I still have two members on the queue. Do you wish still to be heard? Councilmember Hernandez?
Thank you, Council President. I would just like to know what the process would be to have meetings in the afternoons or at night, or having council meetings in the community. Because I would invite everybody to come to LA River Center. We could host a meeting in Northeast LA. Maybe we could host it starting at 3 p.m. so we could have nighttime public comment. I mean, let's just, if that's the power now, let's do it right now. But in the year and a half that I've been here, we never done that. So
well, I will
only in Van Nuys, and they have a beautiful building there. So we should go back.
I'll respond to that very briefly. The answer is council president can set a meeting anytime, anywhere. But you will also see the challenges that we've had even scheduling ad hoc committee on governance reform meetings, because we have to get a quorum. And that means coordinating with all of your schedules to try to find a time when it's available. So if we try to set meetings for a 15-member council in the evening or on the weekend or in San Pedro or someplace else, that means that the council president will need to figure out where and when can we do that and be sure that we're going to have a quorum of the meeting so that it can go forward. That's the only constraint, really, is ensuring that, and for all the reasons that have been discussed by members, that Mr. McOsker just said about, you know, the conflicting matters that we all have, that all the members have touched on, that's really the only constraint on that. Okay. So the motion has been, I don't think we need to vote on the amendment. It's the mover who brought it. So, so as amended, 27B is now before us to refer these questions to the Charter Reform Commission. As amended, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the votes.
14 ayes, 1 no.
All right, thank you. Members, I just want to thank you for your endurance through a very long, marathon, grueling meeting, and to our staffs as well. This has been a challenge, but this is what legislating is. This is what debate is. We took a dramatic amount of public comment, we debated issues on their substance, and we resolved them. And that's what this legislative body should be all about. So I want to thank you for that. With that, if there's no motions for adjournment, go forth and serve the city well. This meeting is adjourned.